Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Ask Me Anything on Azure Platform Security. I'm Sean Whalen, and today I'm joined by three great Azure Platform Security subject matter experts. So please post your questions now at aka.ms/AMA/Azure Platform Security, shown there at the bottom of your screen. Let's get started. Anupam, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Sean. Hi, everyone. Anupam Vij. I'm a group product manager in Azure Networking, and I lead the network security portfolio of services.
Awesome. Joey?
Hey, everybody. I'm Joey Snow. I am a cloud advocate that focuses on security.
And Anshu?
Hi, everybody. I'm Anshu. I'm a product manager in Azure Networking, focusing on all secure connectivity options for your on-premises, your PaaS, and your workloads in the VNets.
Awesome. So our first question, obviously in today's environment, securing AI models is an increasingly crucial task for a modern day CISO. Joey, our resident AI security expert, can you tell our viewers what Azure is doing to ensure that AI is secure on the platform?
I love being called a resident expert. That's awesome. So look, securing AI models really top priority, and Azure is really leading the charge here. It's really kind of a multi-layered security approach. We understand at Microsoft that AI protection, it's not just about securing that model. It's about building strong security foundations, identity, network, data, all of that stuff. So kind of starting off at the front, identity and access management, Azure uses identity protection, ensuring that only the right people can access the right resources. Lots of managed identities segmented to enforce some strict boundaries. We use features like role-based access control and, of course, MFA. Everybody should be MFAing all the things to make sure that we're restricting access based on roles and trust levels. There's also a bunch of stuff in terms of network security and threat protection, and I'm going to let our amazing network folks talk about things more in depth, like firewall, DDoS protection, VNets, and so on and so forth. But really kind of that networking piece and all the layers that you put around it ensures that your AI is still accessible, but only to either improve networks or the communication is restricted and that people or attackers can't traverse across. And then we also have things like confidential computing and data encryption. So it's not just access control. Azure keeps AI data and even the computations themselves secure by leveraging things like secure virtual machines for model execution and development, where we have hardware security modules for key storage. And we even do automated encryption key rotation to ensure that we're continually changing and protecting things. And of course, the data encryption happens at rest. And we've got disk encryption. And, going back to that confidential computing piece, there was a recent report I think yesterday, the most recent version of the Microsoft SFI report came back. And it talks about how we're using some of this confidential computing in Azure confidential virtual machines to really enhance protection against key compromise and forgery, really mitigating the risks that we saw back in the 2023 Storm 0558 attack. So like I said, it's that layered approach. It's really approaching things from a zero trust perspective, not just from the capabilities that we offer, but from actually operating Azure itself.
Awesome. Thanks for that background, Joey. So as a reminder, we're live here, and you can again ask Microsoft anything using the aka.ms link at the bottom of this page. We have a question that came in from X, who is at where we're asked, are there Azure solutions that can perform pen testing for our apps for us? So Anupam is our resident platform security expert. What are your thoughts there on pen testing in Azure?
So I think there are multiple flavors of pen testing. Through the Azure terms of usage, like I would strongly recommend take a look at that document that we published online. Specific to like DDoS attacks, we have done partnership with select partners where if you work with those partners, then you would be able to simulate DDoS attacks as well. There are like a lot of criterias, like we don't allow broadly generating DDoS attacks on the applications in Azure. So that goes against the terms of usage. Likewise, on the penetration testing, we do have like certain guidelines that you need to follow. We'll make sure that we share the link in the chat on what those guidelines are.
And Anupam, that's actually a great segue to talk about DDoS more broadly. Obviously, we're seeing you saw the Microsoft Digital Defense Report. Your team works a lot on DDoS attacks. We're seeing those become more common. What are you and your engineering team doing to help mitigate and prevent DDoS attacks on the platform?
Yeah. So one thing to highlight is that the DDoS mitigation pipeline is completely integrated with the Azure platform. So anytime we create a new region or create a new edge site, the DDoS mitigation pipeline is deployed there. The way it helps is not only that we can mitigate a lot of attacks all at the same time, but we can also do the attack mitigation local to the application region to minimize the latency to those applications, even during the time of DDoS attack. Now, our global mitigation capacity is upwards of 110 terabits per second. What we are seeing from the attack trend standpoint is that the attacks are getting really targeted. And those target attacks are, and this is something that we are observing in 2025, which is like the attacks are targeted towards the finance and healthcare sector, but gaming continues to be the topmost vertical that gets DDoSed. UDP attacks is something that are becoming rampant, again because of like some of the new protocols like Quick, but also because the gaming vertical uses UDP for the performance reasons. And those attacks are really short-lived. So now what we are doing, we have like a defense in-depth approach on DDoS attack mitigations. But as we continue to ramp up our mitigation pipeline, we ensure that we are taking all the telemetry from our internal properties like first-party services and also from like our first-party services like Xbox. And we make sure that our mitigations are on track to mitigate some of these emerging attack vectors as well. One thing that like is not generally discussed is that it's not only when we talk about DDoS attacks, we always like kind of talk about attacks originating from the internet and coming into Azure. But then there is also another sort of attacks which we refer to as the outbound attacks, where hackers can go deploy their virtual machines in Azure and then they can start DDoSing like properties on the internet. It's not something specific to Azure. It happens in other clouds as well. And we do have the outbound attack mitigation as well. And what we do is if we do identify such attacks happening from our platform, we work with our cyber defense team and we make sure that we take down those botnets participating in those attacks. And the latest botnet that kind of like, tried to do that was the MikroTik botnet. And that's where like, we make sure that not only we are securing our platform, Azure platform from inbound attacks, but we are also protecting our customers and Azure platform from the outbound attacks as well.
Awesome, Anupam. So we've got a new question in. The question is, I heard about Azure Network Security Perimeter, but don't really understand the best use case for using it. Can you shed insight? Well, I'm sure glad we brought Anshu here, who is our resident Network Security Perimeter Principal Product Manager. So Anshu, if you would answer the question about Network Security Perimeter.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to talk about network security perimeter. So cloud security is the most critical aspect for all the services hosted on Azure. With network security perimeter, what it lets you do is you can create a trusted isolation boundary for all the PaaS resources which are hosted on Azure. It lets you enforce strict access controls, prevent data exfiltration, and have a single pane of glass where you can get 360 visibility in all the PaaS resources that you're hosting in your environment. Think of, say, for instance, you have hosted thousands of storage accounts, right? And in order to get visibility on, okay, who accesses these storage accounts? Is the data getting copied to an untrusted storage account which is not owned by my organization? The way for you to protect and make sure only valid sources and the valid destinations have access to your data assets, most critical data assets, that's when you would use network security perimeter.
Awesome. And I think we've got a recent blog on this. So if you all go to aka.ms/cloud security fastlane, shown here on the screen, Anshu wrote a very recent tech community blog on network security perimeter that I think everybody here could find very useful as we look to incorporate this in as many applications as possible. So I guess this can be a group question, and whoever has a strong opinion can chime in, but what does the future of Azure security look like to you, our esteemed panelists?
I mean, I can jump right on, and then Anupam and Anshu, I'll let you are the ones who are building it. But really, it's continuing. It's continuing the work that we've been doing around SFI and making sure that Azure is that secure and trusted platform, and then ensuring that when when we build support for workloads such as AI, that we're building in all those tools and the capabilities that you need to ensure that reliability and that security, right? You look at things like AI workloads, where even in Azure AI Foundry, one of the key principles when we talk about securing AI workloads is dealing with prompts, dealing with that content management, what's coming in, what's coming out. That stuff is already built in to the platform. And then you look at the capabilities on the network side, and that's usually where I love to talk about things, but there's far more experts on this one. So I think it is continuing that work that we do, really looking at how do we leverage the capabilities that we make out there public, like confidential computing, like the work that we've done around identities, and continue to push that stuff forward.
Yeah, no, rightly said, Joey. Security is not an afterthought when we are building the products. We think from a security standpoint right at the get-go. And that's how we are looking into as the emerging threats. And as the technology is emerging, we are ensuring that our security services at the platform level, but also the products that we offer to the customers, they are up to the mark. I do see a question which kind of highlights what are we doing towards the zero-day attacks? And that is something that is top of our mind. We ensure that whenever there is a zero-day attack, and there are different flavors of attack. It could be an application layer attack, it could be a network layer attack, but we ensure that our protections and mitigations are updated on an even at an hourly granularity, so that we can mitigate against such attacks as soon as possible. That's where Microsoft and Azure platform also kind of shines, because we have experience and also operational pedigree managing so many first-party services from Office 365 to Xbox. So we have seen varied kind of attacks against these entities as well. And that gives us a lot of experience as well as information on how to better mitigate our customers' workloads in Azure.
Yeah, I second what Joey and Anupam said. So security is a fundamental piece in all the services that are hosted on Azure. It's not an afterthought. It is built into how we can add more defaults itself in all the services that we have today. Native integrations, also thinking from the observability as well as remediation standpoint, so that there can be additional actions that could be taken in. We are looking at all the insights that you're getting from your attack vector, or the observability that you get from all the services, your workloads, your connectivity that you have for your environment.
Also, just want to jump in real quick. Security is a two-way street here, right? We do as much as we can on the platform, but it's a shared responsibility, not just from Microsoft's perspective, but from you as our customers. You're deploying workloads, making sure that you're doing the right things. And again, I will say this a million times anytime I give any type of talk or presentation. You've got to start with turning on MFA, start with turning on multi-factor authentication, and then start building in those layers of security. We can provide that platform, but if you're not enabling these things and turning on these capabilities, even if it's not ours, making sure that it's on so that you're doing the best for the workload that's deployed on the platform to be protected. We need to both take that shared responsibility serious.
Yeah, and piggybacking just off of what Joey said, security is priority number one at Microsoft. And just yesterday, we released the newest version of the Secure Future Initiative report. So I encourage everyone viewing this to take a look at that new, what we call SFI report update, and see the different areas, including Azure, that Microsoft is working to make security the number one priority across the company. So now we have a question in. I think we're going to be coming back to Joey. The question is, we host AI models in Azure. Is it possible for someone to conceal malware inside an AI model? How do we mitigate that risk within our tenant? What are your best tips on this?
So this is a really great question. And this is where, again, more capabilities that we make available to our customers through running AI workloads in Azure. If you are using models on Azure AI Foundry, there are a lot of these models, and you can go in and look model by model to see which one is protected. But we have partnered with Hidden Layer. So what Hidden Layer does, it does model scanning, and it does exactly that. It does prevent against having malware. Think of it like kind of a supply chain protection for those AI models. So looking for malware, anytime protecting against 0 days. So have a look for that. You'll see when you look at the model, you click the model, you'll see it that down at the bottom, it shows that this model has been protected by hidden layer, and that's probably one of the best suggestions that I can give to protect against that. And the root of the answer is yes, 100%. It is responsible. It is possible for these models to have malware hidden in them, just like anything out there in the supply chain. You can get that stuff in there. So we're doing our best to protect that through hidden layer and some of the AI Foundry stuff that we've got.
And we're on an AI roll here because we just got a question in from LinkedIn. What tools can be used to identify and protect sensitive data being used with third-party AI tools?
Okay, so data protection is key, and there are a number of tools out there now. Obviously, I work for Microsoft, so I'm going to say purview all the things because that's what we really want to do. But when you're looking at data, and particularly with AI, you really have to look at the permissioning of the data, who has access to what, and restricting that permission, and then add the other layer on top of labeling and classification to ensure that that data is still, Microsoft Purview right now if you're leveraging Microsoft 365 and using data Microsoft 365, you can leverage Microsoft Purview labeling and classification. We've got more information coming up Microsoft Build in terms of extending that out. But I want to be clear, making sure that you've got those protections in there, and don't try to cover your entire data estate for just one small AI model. Make sure that you really kind of put fences around everything, right? It's that defense in depth creates, those smaller spaces. Really look at who's got access to it. Don't build the mother of all AI apps that serves everything. Keep it very, very targeted, and then you can use those tools. And again, there's other data protection tools out there that work for AI. Just make sure you've got that proper classification. Make sure that you're limiting the data that's accessible. Make sure that you've got the proper access controls put on it.
We've got another question. So this is a break from AI and more towards network security and monitoring, which Anupam and Anshu love here. So Anshu, I'll start with you. How would you monitor and audit activities in Azure? And feel free to bring up kind of the global Azure network as part of that, because I think that plays in a lot there.
Yeah, no, for sure. So we have a number of monitoring offerings that we have in Azure. We have Azure Monitor. It has log analytics. It has a bunch of offerings that you can look into, which gives you very detailed insights into the logs that are being generated for your environment. We also have a Network Watcher, which gives you visibility around what you have posted on your VNets. Traffic analytics, you can get visibility in terms of entire visualization as well for all the connectivity that you might have for your workloads in VNets or coming from your on-premises as well. Now, addition of network security perimeter. So think of a network security perimeter is an isolation boundary that you could have for your PaaS. So kind of you are like creating this trust boundary for all your PaaS resources now. So you can turn on diagnostic settings on network security perimeter, will give you observability and insights into all the PaaS resources that you have hosted. For auditing, Azure provides Azure policies. You can apply those policies and you can have some definite behaviors like deny, audit. This will give you more governance aspect for enforcing a particular control or capability that you would want for an entire environment. So that lets you like tie in with the observability piece as well as the governance aspect using Azure policies.
Yeah. I would like to highlight like almost every Azure service integrates with Azure Monitor.
Yeah.
Right. So the telemetry and the logs, like most of the times, will automatically flow to Azure Monitor. If not, then for instance, for DDoS protection, you have to go and enable those logs. Now, with that said, we also have integration with Sentinel. So if you use Sentinel as your SIEM system in Azure, then we ensure that there is easy way for you to import the logs in Sentinel as well. Microsoft Defender for Cloud, if you are using that, then some of the alerts, particularly from our security services, do get integrated with that, such that like if you are using Defender for Cloud as your single pane of glass to understand like the alert posture or the CSPM, which is Cloud Security Posture Management, then you get that capability as well.
Yeah, remember that the old Azure Security Center is now part of Defender for Cloud, and that posture management. It's one of the first things that we do, even when we build our own demo environments, when we go out and show things in sample AI deployments that we put out there for developers to use. When we go out and do the AI tour, we even run those free CSPM tools or Defend for Cloud tools to go look at those best practices and be like, oh yeah, we forgot to put in, we forgot to segment this off with the VNet, or we really should think about putting the firewall here. Because it's very easy to skip over some of these things when you're, and it's great to have that highlighted for you.
Now, we only have 5 minutes left, so please drop any last questions into the AKA. But I'm going to go back to Joey, and I know you have a lot of opinions about this, Joey, but what's a good process for building a secure application? After all, that's why we're all here on Tech Community today listening to this virtual event. What are your thoughts there, Joey?
I mean,
and then I'm on you as well.
I hate to be kind of a broken record, but it really comes down to creating, well, I'll use the term a well-architected framework, right? And I can point folks to the security pillar of the well-architected framework document, but it is about having layers. I recently wrote a blog post that talks, I used an analogy as like you're a city planner and you're like planning like a really big city and you need to give workers only the access that they need. And we have to have these multiple layers or using a defense in depth approach. That's really kind of the suggestion that I give. You really need to get in and do everything from establishing a really good secure baseline, which is a lot like building codes and building regulations, making sure you've got that good foundation. Do threat modeling. Look at what do you need to protect? What are key things that, if we're exposed, could be a very, very bad thing. Look at how potential threats might come in, where there might be vulnerabilities, and implement some controls around that. I talked a lot about data, so we'll kind of skip over that, but data classification is really key here. My friends in networking, network segmentation, you've got to divide things up. You need to isolate things. And then you need to use proper access management and identity controls to identify who has access to what and when can they get there. And then just to pile on what we just talked about, that once you get all of that set up, you need to start looking at what's coming in and what's coming out, and that monitoring and looking at that analysis. And you don't have to go in deep and do hardcore analysis, but keep an eye on things. And remember, one last bit here, particularly when you're dealing with AI. In AI, the data that you get is creating more data. Anytime somebody asks a prompt for something and that response comes back, there's more data there, and that needs to be protected and monitored as well.
And please read more about Joey's blog at aka.ms/cloud security city planner to take a look at that. Now, we're running low on time here, so I'm going to do a very shameless plug. If you enjoyed this session, Anupam and Joey will both be at the Microsoft booth at the upcoming RSA conference, if any of you all are attending. So please head by the Azure booth 3 to speak with them about anything Azure platform security related or more. But yeah, any closing thoughts, Joey? I know you just have, but any closing thoughts from Anupam as we close out on Azure security tips?
I would reiterate, right? Like from a security standpoint, security is a shared responsibility. So we offer the platform capabilities to secure your workloads, but we also need your help to ensure that you are minimizing the surface area of the attack itself. And then take a look into the best practices that we have published through our Azure CAF and the WAF framework. And if you enjoy this session, if you are at RSA, then looking forward to meet you there.
Anshu, any final thoughts from you?
No, same. Like we have all the Lego box ready for you to build a fence for safeguarding your environment. Utilize those. Apply network segmentation, network isolation, zero trust principles for your environment. And if there are any questions, we are always happy to help and provide more information. Take a look at all the tech community blogs. We have a lot more announcements coming for all the new capabilities. So please do keep an eye on that.
Well, thanks again, everyone, for joining this Ask Me Anything. Your next session in about 5 minutes will be Enhancing Security for Cloud Migration. So please join us at the next URL, aka.ms/accelerate/secure cloud migration. Again, I'm Sean Whalen, and on behalf of myself, Joey, Anupam, and Anshu, Thank you so much for joining today's Ask Me Anything.